And welcome to the Dave LewAllen Podcast. We cover sports stories, newsmakers, and difference makers. And we're pleased that you found us on YouTube or your favorite platform for podcasts. We'll get to the point where we'll have the opportunity to offer you to support this podcast and or corporate or business support. I encourage you to watch episode 5. We had Kim, the R&B superstar singer, with us here in the studio. Do check that out as well. But today, we're going to welcome Oakland County Sheriff Michael Bouchard, who has served in his position since 1999, 35 years of law enforcement. He's an elected official, also served in the state legislature as a state representative and state senator, was the majority floor leader as well before being appointed to his position as Oakland County Sheriff. We welcome Sheriff Michael Bouchard. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm not sure I want to follow an R&B star, but,
You're a star in your own right.
Yeah. My singing in the shower is not going to match up.
Well, and I told him as well, I don't have a musical bone in my body, but his music still, would speak to me. So it was great having him here. You are the former president and current vice president of government affairs as well for the Coalition of Police and Sheriffs of America, an important role as well. We're going to get into some of the challenges of policing and also, the recruitment of deputies, officers going forward, the challenges there as well. But I guess maybe first, just kind of a statement as we approach the end of 2023. Where are we with safety, security, law enforcement from where you sit today?
It's a challenge. Excuse me, you brought up a number of reasons why. Recruitment, very difficult in the environment. The hours aren't great, the pay's not great, and the demonization that happened over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years made it even harder. People looked at it and said, well, why would I want to go into that where people are calling me names and doing the kinds of things that they're doing, refusing service to police. And, if somebody does something bad in police work, they ought to be held accountable, but that's a small percentage. Mm-hmm. And so somehow America has allowed police to be demonized, mostly on the national level, and the rhetoric then spilled down because of terrible situations like George Floyd or elsewhere. But then they allowed it to spread without any kind of context that, 99% of the people are out there doing the right thing every day. And the ones that aren't are a situation where they ought to be held accountable. Cops hate bad cops more than anybody else. Yeah. And so we've allowed this to create this rhetoric and perception that, man, the whole thing's broke. It's not completely broke. What it is it's the perception they have because of the constant 24/7 news and cable and everything else. If some police officer does something bad in a small town in Minnesota, Wisconsin, California, you name it, it's going to be on our news here on cable time and time and time and time again. And if you find maybe 10 just abhorrent situations in the country, and let's say it happens once a month, 12, and they show it over and over and over again in every city in America, suddenly everyone goes, gosh, this is happening all the time. 12 police officers out of 800 and some thousand. Right. It's a very small number. Not to minimize what they've done, and they ought to be held accountable, but it creates that perception. And we as a society, I think, because I've been in this a long time, have allowed police officers of today to become the Vietnam vets of yesteryear, where they were asked to do a tough job, went off to Vietnam in a thankless, very difficult, deadly situation. When they came home, they were demonized. Yeah. And we're allowing that to happen now. Every time something happens in some city somewhere in America, some of our deputies will go into a coffee shop and be told that we don't serve cops. Oh. I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around. So that's the environment we're out there trying to recruit. Again, in a situation where the hours aren't great and the pay's not great, and then plus all of that where they're demonized, today's generation looks at this and goes, I can make a lot more in the private sector and have regular hours. So we really have to focus on those that came into it for the reason I did, that it's a calling, not a job. That we don't come into it to make money. We don't come into it to have great hours. We come in to make a difference. Yeah. And that's more and more challenging in today's world.
But there are people who still want to serve.
100%.
And feel they can make a difference in their communities and help people.
And they do. I have countless stories every day of our folks and other agencies around us and across the country that have made a huge difference. I mean, we saved somebody's life with Narcan, Opvi, another alternative, last night. It's constant. And we saved a woman that was going to jump off a hospital recently, off the top of the roof. One of the deputies talked her off and got her down, got her help. So that's the amazing thing about this calling. When I went away to college, I was going to be a doctor, but I just tuned into so many of these issues. You can make such a big difference. You can be at somebody's worst moment of their life, the hand that pulls them back. And that is an immensely rewarding and satisfying thing. It's something that very many professions don't have, right. And that's the calling of it.
So I want to talk a little bit more about some of those challenges and opportunities. But you mentioned Opvi and Narcan. Narcan has been around for a while. That's to help people with overdoses.
Right.
So Opvi is new in your department, the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, as I understand it, the first to use this new tool. Tell us a little bit more about Opvi.
Yep.
How is it like and different from Narcan?
Yeah, 100%. So I'll go back a little bit in time. I actually went to the legislature to allow us to carry Narcan. It was against the law when I went there. It took me almost 2 years to get it through the legislature, which was frustrating because, we save close to 100 lives a year. So we probably lost 200 lives in that waiting to get it legalized. And we've been carrying Narcan ever since. We saved hundreds and hundreds of lives. But we've noticed because of the pharmacological changes and chemists and all those people out there, and especially China and Mexico, have moved very deeply into synthetic fentanyl. And that is something that is much more potent and kills people in a blink. And so we've noticed time and time again when we administer Narcan, 1, 2, 3, 4 doses, it doesn't have the effect because of the correlation to the synthetic versus non-synthetic, all of those other high-dose things that come with the synthetic. Opvi is specifically approved by the FDA for synthetic fentanyl. So that gives us a chance to go into that scenario and save a life that we may not have been able to save otherwise. So we have both, but it gives us a new tool.
And longer lasting, I read.
Stays in the body longer, a longer shelf life. There are some pluses.
But there's an expense that goes with that. Narcan, Opvi, if that's going to be rolled out to help police agencies and first responders across the country, there's an expense with that will have to be accounted for.
Oh, 100%. And we have great partners. The coalitions and community health and all those folks typically help us very much. Oftentimes they actually pay for the kits. So this first batch, there were 100 in the batch, 2 doses in each box. I think the cost was $7,500. That was donated to the sheriff's office. And it's already out in the streets, and we've already got 2 documented saves.
So you believe this is going to be a very, very helpful tool to keep people alive? Yes.
When somebody's in that non-responsive mode from high-dose synthetic fentanyl, this will allow us to pull them back.
Yeah, excellent. Issues that, as a department, you're facing. We mentioned recruitment. We'll get into more of that, the challenges. But in terms of things on the ground, you, in the month of October, mentioned concern about gangs from south of the border, Central America, Latin America, coming here and breaking into homes, high net worth individuals. We're seeing this in areas around the country?
100%. 100%. I've gotten a lot deeper into this as we've been hit more and more. The intelligence on this says there's about 100 teams around the country that are operating from this one particular gang, if you will, the Chilean transnational gang. About 100 teams, usually teams of 4, and they're all over the country. They focus on sometimes jewelry robberies or high-end homes. So we've been hit by both. Oakland Mall and Great Lakes Crossing were hit by the robbery team of the Chilean gangs. I have 4 Chilean nationals in my jail now for the robbery of 2 jewelry stores. We've been hit on many high-end home robberies. There's 4 in jail that are connected to some of our robberies. But the problem is there's more teams that keep coming in and more teams that are out there. So it's something that we need help from the national level, but that's just not forthcoming at the moment.
So advice for homeowners, I mean, number one, be alert, be aware, but what steps should people in these communities be taking to try to safeguard themselves and their property?
Well, I would say to everybody, safeguard your home, be situationally aware, have good locks, use them. If you have the ability to buy an alarm, do so. If you have the ability to buy cameras, do so. Make sure they're both quality. If you get an alarm system, make sure it's layered. Lots of times what people do is they have maybe door and window contacts, but these particular burglars, typically they're coming in lots of times through a second-story window. They break a window and go through the window. They don't open it. So that would not set any contact alarm off. So you have to have secondary things like motion detectors, and you have to have things like glass break sensors. But the other thing that we've seen is sometimes there's a utilization of jammers. So a lot of alarm systems, especially the more inexpensive type, are wireless. And you can buy jammers, I'm not going to tell you where, but they're very accessible and inexpensive. And lots of times they're utilizing those to jam the wireless signals from those systems. So hardwired is best. It's also more expensive and challenging, but it doesn't have the same ability to be disrupted so easily. So make sure you're doing all that. Make sure you use it. Turn it on. A number of these homes that have been hit, the alarms weren't on. It's just we have to go back and look at things and check out what your house looks like, what systems you have. Are you using it? What should you add? So I've actually gone to a number of people that I know, their homes, and told them, you need to make some changes here. Because lots of times alarm companies, well-intentioned, but they don't connect it with the kinds of crimes that we're seeing. And so they may have a very good alarm system, but it's not going to catch these guys.
Yeah, so it's incumbent upon you as a homeowner to make sure you're properly secured or prepared.
Right, and layered, and use your systems.
Yeah. All right, so, and I guess be alert, be aware if there are strange cars or individuals or, someone canvassing the neighborhood. I mean, say something.
Yeah, 100%. Call us or your local police. If you see a car in the neighborhood that's parked on a side street in an odd spot, call your local police. Because typically what they're doing is they're parking a little distance away, and lots of times this particular group is coming in through like an obscure area, maybe through a golf course, a lot of these homes, or parks, or very vegetated areas. So it gives them some kind of secret route in, if you will, through the back, and then they go back out typically to their car, which is parked a bit away. So a car parked in an odd spot, whether it's occupied or not, in these kinds of moments, give a call to the police. We'd rather check out 100 nothings than miss one real deal.
So these are people from Chile.
Yes.
What are they doing here in the first place, right? And this speaks to a larger issue right now happening in our country, and that is immigration, a porous southern border, people streaming into this country. We don't even know who they are. There aren't mechanisms or support in order to manage this process. I mean, this is a failure of our federal government,
100%.
of our legislators in Washington, D.C. in particular. I mean, this is security of our country. People aren't doing the job. I mean, is that the view from where you sit?
100%. Law enforcement is unanimous, and we need to secure our borders. We need to fix our immigration system 100%, have it timely, efficient, allow people to come to this country for a better life. We're a nation of immigrants.
Right.
This isn't an anti-immigrant thing. This is a screen and do due diligence thing. I mean, we wouldn't let someone come into the home and babysit our kids without knowing who they are and a little bit of background, maybe doing a reference check. So the same is true when someone comes into the country. You have to know who they are, what reasons they're coming, some very basic things, and that's not happening. We know that the exponential increase in people that are on the terror watch list have been caught. We don't know how many haven't been caught. We know there's been a huge increase on people on the do not fly list that are flying into Mexico and then coming across. So we know a ton of people because they've been caught, but we also know that the amount of what they call gotaways is in the millions at this point over the last few years.
So why isn't anybody in Washington doing anything about this? And I don't care what administration it is, whether it was Trump before or Biden now or whoever comes next. I mean, we have people that are in Washington that are supposed to be representing our interests. I mean, what could be more important than securing the borders of our country, especially given what's going on, in our world today?
No, it's numbing, and I can't get into the actual intelligence that I'm privy to, but I can say an open source, which means it's already out publicly, has said a number of terrorist groups say they have a number of people already in place in America. So that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
For us, we have to get it right 100% of the time as law enforcement to prevent a terrorist attack. They only have to get it right once. And, on 9/11, you had basically less than, 10, 15 people that did a horrendous impact in America. Imagine if there's 100 of them out there.
Yeah. Or more.
Or, we have no handle on what that could be or where they might be. So, secure the border, make sure we have a screening system that allows people to come in timely that are here for a better life. 100%.
Yeah.
We want that. We need that.
Keep those people out that don't belong here.
Keep the people out that are coming with ill intention to either human traffic, to drug traffic, or to do us harm. That's not a rocket equation. It's just frustrating that Washington can't get it right.
Yeah. And you mentioned trafficking, human trafficking. That's, that is a huge problem as well. I guess in some cases, if it doesn't direct someone, it doesn't impact someone directly, maybe we don't think it is the problem that it truly is. But from, again, your position, it's an issue.
Oh, it's 100%. We know for a fact that cartels have a hand in almost everybody that's snuck in or is assisted. They're muled into the country. And the human trafficking thing comes out of that, and the narcotic trafficking that comes out of it is horrendous. We know that oftentimes cartels will put young women on birth control before they start the trek because they know they're going to be sexually assaulted throughout the route. Yeah. I mean, these are knowledgeable facts that are out there, and we're not doing anything about it. I talked to a sheriff yesterday. Just in the last 4 months, he's found 100 dead bodies in the desert in his county that have perished for whatever reason coming across that border with cartel support.
Yeah. But it's happening even within our own country, the human trafficking. That is an issue.
That's coming into our country, that they're muling them in, and
right.
They're putting them in situations in the country once they get here to pay back a debt. Mm-hmm. So they're trafficking them once they get here based on their debt to get them here.
Wow. Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit again about recruitment because of the challenge that's there. You have recruitment fairs, both for officers, for deputies, for correction staff in the jails and things of that sort. How do you work, I guess, to try to spread the word that, hey, we're hiring, we're looking for good people who want to serve their communities?
We actually added a full-time recruiting component to our agency, so they're out every day, whether it's at schools or festivals or fairs or you name it, we'll go. We're trying to recruit a very diverse, character-driven individual that wants to make a difference in people's lives. So that's our focus, wherever we can get it, whatever community it's in. And, the more that we draw from different communities, the better we are at representing the communities we serve. So that's our focus. It's been pretty positive in terms of how we've made impacts. We've changed a lot of our human resource internal mechanisms, to try to be quicker, to offer conditional jobs, before people become disinterested or move on to something else. We've tried to really change up our game to get people in the door quicker once we realize that's a quality person. And so, but it's a challenge because we're fighting against the private sector that oftentimes has better pay, better benefits, and better hours. And so that's why we again go back to the focus on a heart of service. You want to make a difference. You want to be in a position to do things in people's lives that very few occupations do. This is one of them. You know, people that put on a uniform, whether it's police, fire, military, they don't do it because they're going to get rich. They do it because they care about their country or their community, and those are the target groups. So we're also expanding and have expanded our outreach to the military as people, you know, muster out.
You have a large department. I think I read over 1,400 employees.
Yes.
Millions of dollars in terms of a budget that you manage as well. You know, and you've done this a long time. We mentioned, 35 years of law enforcement experience. What is it what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up is the unknowns. What are we facing that we're not aware about? Because this job is so evolved from when I started in it, where you were a cop on a beat focused on your local crime and how you could help people in your local community. Now we're involved in everything globally, transnational gangs, terrorism, mental health, drug abuse, all, the substance abuse disorder has rocketed up in my career. Mental health crisis rocketed up in my career. So we become involved in so many things, many of which we never anticipated.
Right. Or maybe we're at one point even prepared to handle appropriately.
Right. So we constantly have to study what's happening in terms of different trends in the community. One of the things I've studied is every active shooter or major incident in the world for 20 years to learn what did that situation teach us. What did the agency do right? What did they do wrong? What could have been done better? So each situation has usually a kernel or two, like after the Virginia Tech shooting, where the shooter had put chains on the doors to keep people from getting out that door and help from getting in that door. I ordered bolt cutters to be put in our patrol cars. So if that situation repeated itself here, we would know how to quickly disable that chain, make entry, go to the threat, and eliminate the threat. We teach, active shooter scenarios, so don't park in the parking lot and run all the way to the school or the office building or the shopping center. Park, drive right up across everything, grass, whatever, get right to the door. If the door has some kind of disability so you can't get in it, breach the door if you need to with your car. Get in that building, find the threat. So we're constantly changing our training. And the other thing that we've done is very unique in Oakland County. All Oakland County agencies have been training together. In 2006, I called every chief and said, we need to start training together for active shooters and all sorts of scenarios. So big and small agencies all have the same training. So that when they get to that door, if they happen to arrive simultaneously, two different departments, you don't have to make a plan. You already know what you're going to do.
Yeah. And let's delve into a little bit, sadly, the tragedy that we had here locally in Oxford with the school shooting there. And your officers, your deputies, there were some inside that building, as they are in many schools throughout Oakland County. To have that tragedy unfold in that way has ruined lives, changed lives, impacted people in so many negative ways, maybe that we don't even fully understand to this day.
No, it will be permanently a part of those people that are involved and people beyond that, people in the community and even beyond the community. I've had people in different communities and different schools come up to me, teenagers in a coffee store, and give me a hug, just looking for reassurance. I mean, you don't get a lot of hugs from teenagers, even as parents sometimes. So there's a lot of anxiety and fear in the community. It's rippled out across so many people and so many layers, including our own. We have some people that still haven't been able to come back to work. It has a tremendous, horrific impact. But I will say I'm proud of our people. If you look at what we were tragically bookended by, Parkland, where they stayed outside and the murder continued, and then Uvalde, where they stayed outside and the murdering continued. Our folks got there, and every person that got there without exception immediately went into the building. As soon as they got there, they geared up and they went in. There was no waiting for somebody else or trying to wait for SWAT or go in, find the threat. That's what they did. The team that went in and took the shooter into custody, he still had 18 live rounds of ammunition. And I'm convinced had he not heard us, seen us, or been confronted by us, he would have fired every one of those rounds until he was confronted.
He has admitted, accepted responsibility for his actions, but justice is not done in this case, certainly, with the parents and things that are still taking place, and the healing, that's going to go on forever as well.
Yeah, without question. I mean, we've tried to help in that process. One of the things we've really expanded dramatically is our comfort trauma dogs that are regularly visiting schools. They're regular at the Oxford Resiliency Center to try to help with people in that healing process, that comforting process. When Oxford reopened, we had all of our comfort dogs there. It's amazing to see the kids just spot those little dogs of ours and just go over and almost melt their anxiety into those dogs. And the dogs absorb it. I remember being there on that day, and the one dog that I was with was exhausted. After they all came through the door. He went behind my legs and just like passed out asleep because he had absorbed so much of that emotionally. He was exhausted. But watching the kids just kind of relax and feel, okay, we can get through this day. Was an amazing testimony to the dogs and our people.
And while we're not through that experience and never will be fully, what has come out of it in terms of other school districts, maybe that have taken additional steps or understand the need to take a different approach, or whether it's a more serious approach or a more detailed approach? What has happened in terms of conversation and action since then?
It's constant. That message that I've been given for years is the more communication between everybody, the better, and take nothing for granted. So if a child or a parent hears something, and the child's most likely to be in a position to hear or see something concerning, and then secondarily it might be school staff. If that's not shared in a wide circle, including us, there's no intervention capability. And so even if sometimes you think, no, it's not a possibility, it could be. So, we had a situation years before this where a 6-year-old was having dinner with his parents and said another 6-year-old had said they were going to bring a gun to school and shoot somebody. And the parents didn't go, oh, I'm sure he didn't mean it. He shouldn't have said that. And they didn't dismiss it. They called us, and we looped in the schools, and we started trying to figure out who that was. And the next day we were outside of the school, and we stopped that student on the way into school, 6 years old, had a gun in his backpack. So never take anything for granted. And our first job, our protocols are make the school and the situation safe. So go into the school, whoever has made the threat, whoever is of concern, make sure that situation's made safe. Then we do a secondary to the student's home. What's the availability and accessibility of weapons? What else is going on? It's a holistic thing. So the schools have to communicate any concerns with us, and we have to immediately respond to that, and that's the way you get in front of things. And again, we may have intervened in 100 times successfully, and it never made the news. Great. But that one time where that communication is failing or some piece falls through the cracks, that's when you have a tragedy.
And you can't just do everything. Just the fact that your deputy might be in the school, if those other parts aren't happening, right? If the school administration, the school staff, if the team isn't working together, as you say, hey, the link is broken, bad things could happen.
And they did. They have.
Yeah, they have. A lot of heavy stuff. Let's talk about a few other things of a more positive nature that, as a department, the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, that you do in the community to help others as you serve. for years and years, in the month of November, you've had a coat drive. That has happened again this year. Tell me about that over the years. 36 years, I think, that you've had the coat drive, and the meaning. How meaningful that is.
Yeah, that's a program that's actually followed me everywhere I've been. So I was a street patrolman at the time, and I was working afternoons, and I got off afternoons and went down to Greektown to get some food, some saganaki and some great food in Greektown after I got off afternoon. So I'm down there about 1 in the morning or so. And when I come out of the restaurant, I see a bunch of people huddled around steam grates trying to stay warm. It was in the winter. I thought, oh my gosh, how do we help this? How do we get involved? And I was thinking about it quite a bit. And then I looked in my closet, and sometimes you have a winter coat that you really like, and you're wearing that, and the other ones get pushed into the back. And I haven't worn that one. It's a great coat, but I haven't worn it in years. Right. So I thought, why don't we start a coat drive for either gently used or new coats that if people wanted to donate new, and see what we can then partner with service agencies that help people in crisis to get those coats out to the community. And that's how it got started 36 years ago when I was a police officer, and then I took it with me to the Senate, and it's been at the Sheriff's Office for 24 years. And we have collected thousands and thousands of coats every year and given them to people that need a coat, need gloves, need a hat to get through a winter.
Important work. One of the other things you're doing from an outreach standpoint, Oakland County Sheriff's Office provides policing in Pontiac, the city of Pontiac. It's a city that has had many challenges over the years. You have an outreach effort with kids. You've got a Pontiac policing team, an academy of sorts where you're reaching out and providing opportunities for young people. Tell me what you can about that.
Yeah, we've done a lot of things. When we assumed operations in Pontiac, there was very little athletic or mentoring opportunities for kids because of the budget challenges. The city was in near bankruptcy. So we launched Sheriff Pal to give them athletic and mentoring opportunities, which has now blossomed into a major organization with great community outreach, a lot of sports programs and mentoring. We have our community policing team that goes out and tries to interact in the community, see what kinds of issues that we can help with, try to recruit from the community to get them to be part of our agency and hopefully someday work with our agency and go back and police the community they came from. So we're really deep into connecting with the communities we serve because that allows us to better resolve any issues. And it's been an effective partnership. When we took over policing, all violent crime across the board is down pretty much 30% since we got there. When we got there, 911 calls were 80 minutes. Wow. And now all priority calls are about 6 minutes. So it really has kind of changed the landscape, and a lot of development, thankfully, has come to Pontiac because I think people feel safer. And, it begins to generate kind of a symbiotic, we can do more, we can be better, we can get farther. And we've been excited to be part of it.
And we had on the podcast earlier, Mayor Tim Greimel on talking about some of the challenges and opportunities and the work that is happening in Pontiac, some with county support and with state support as well. So yes, hopefully there are better days ahead for Pontiac. Another initiative of yours, the Never Quit Challenge,
right?
Benefiting again your deputies. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah,
and how people can help. Maybe.
Deputy Overall was one of our rock stars. He was a school resource deputy and did a lot of things. And he was killed in the line of duty a number of years ago. And to kind of honor his memory and continue to help other people in the agency, they create this kind of CrossFit athletic challenge, and people can take part in it. They can donate to it, and the monies that is raising are going to a number of our deputies, sadly, that are very deep in fights against cancer and other very life-threatening illnesses.
Yeah. When you talk about an agency of your size, they are impacted. Your members, your team members, are impacted with life and health issues, just like everyone else is. And part of your responsibility from a leadership standpoint is try to help take care of your team.
100%. Yeah, we try to, our verbiage is no one in this family fights alone. So if you've got a health illness, a mental health challenge, whatever it is, we want to be there for you. And we have an amazing group of men and women that are on our peer-to-peer team that try to help people that are in crisis. And it's got to be that kind of bottom-up approach to help people because, it's naturally something you don't necessarily want to ask for help or share with everybody all the way to the top.
Sure. Yeah. All right, we're in the holiday season now. Scammers never take a break from holidays, it seems, or any other time of the year. I guess if there are things out there now, maybe just a word of advice for people as the holidays approach and we work through them.
Yep.
In terms of someone trying to take advantage of somebody in a bad way. Any brief advice that way?
Just ignore most of the things that sound too good to be true or things that are trying to hook you in. I've gotten 3 emails or texts today. Just confirming your new Apple purchase. Click this link. No. We're just checking on, this new thing. Click. No. Don't fall for that because anytime you click on a hyperlink on a phone or on a computer, it could send malware into your device and it could expose you to identity theft or other kinds of financial crime. So that's one. Number 2, scams are everywhere, presenting themselves as government officials. You didn't show up for jury duty unless you give us $500 right now over the phone. We're going to send somebody to arrest you, or you have a warrant for your arrest, and we'll handle it over the phone. Or the most recent one we just had, they're calling actual convicted sex offenders who are on the list and saying, you missed a notification, so you have to pay $2,000 to stay this arrest warrant. And, this person did. Anybody that demands immediate money over the phone is not government. We never do that. No agency of government will do that. Hang up. It's a scam, and oftentimes it's offshore, so we don't even have the ability to catch or prosecute them.
Yeah. Well, hopefully everyone will follow the advice that way. Happy holidays to you and to your team. Thank you for this time today.
Yeah, pleasure.
For the advice, for the tips, and again, most importantly, right? If you see something, say something.
100%. That's what we're here for. Yeah. We'd rather, again, check 100 things that are nothing than miss one real deal and help comfort people in crisis. That's what we do.
Yeah. Thank you for your time and for your service.
Appreciate it very much.
Oakland County Sheriff Michael Bouchard joining us on this episode of the Dave LewAllen Podcast. As always, we thank you for joining us, for supporting this podcast. YouTube, like, subscribe. That's helpful to us. And at this time of the year, we'd like to say happy holidays to all of you. Be safe. Be kind. We'll see you next time.